Hi there, welcome back. Welcome to another tube radio restoration project. This one is a nice one. I've been looking for this radio for a while. I've wanted one of these and it's finally come into my hands. As I say occasionally, sometimes it's good to be me. This one is mine. I bought it online, just arrived. This model was built between 1961 and 1964. It was actually built by Grundig in Portugal, which is where I live. If you don't know, I live on the island of Madeira. We are part of Portugal. And this is now sort of the more modern look that they started coming up with. We're talking 60s now, so they had to change something. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the inside is pretty much what they were in the 50s, but we shall see. I'm just looking at the blurb on it. Basically, the tube complement is the same. It's got an ECC 85 for the FM, ECH 81 for the mixer oscillator, an EF 89 is an IF amplifier. EABC 80 is that triple diode tetrode thingy for the decoding and preamp. Then there's an EL 84 is the power stage, and an EM 84 is the magic eye. I've just realized it's got a magic eye. Hadn't even noticed. Right, now what do we have here? This thing is neat, and this one is in absolutely incredible condition. This thing looks like it's been stored very, very well. There isn't any scratching on the woodwork. There's no staining or damage on the dial glass, which by now is plexiglass, not glass. So it's a bit safer to work with. All the knobs are in perfect condition. A little bit of dirt here and there, but nothing much. Just following this around, I do see a little bit of chipping on the bottom of the woodwork there. And the back is impeccable. Absolutely impeccable. It's unreal. This thing is unreal. And this is one of the reasons why I bought it, but the other reason is I was born in 63, so this thing is right around my birth date, and it would really be cool if it was a 63 model. This particular color is one of the options they had. There was a dark brown and this sort of light creamy coffee color, is it? Whatever it is. And I preferred this one. I'm not sure whether these colors came out at the same time or whether this was prior to the other one or after the other one, but I'll find out. I'm sure we'll find some date codes inside. But because this thing is in such impeccable condition, I'm expecting two things. One, that it should be quite easy to do, because in terms of cabinet work, I don't need Dave Tipton's help here. I think I'll be able to handle it. In terms of the internals, I've done so many Grundigs that it's sort of almost automatic. And although this is a later model, the tube lineup is the same. And I've had a quick look at the schematic. It looks pretty standard. Nothing very dramatic about it at all. So it should be fairly easy. And I hope I don't have to eat my words later on. But what I want to do is I want to put it on. I want to turn it on. Because it is in such impeccable condition that I think it'll be safe to put it on. I'm going to put it through the dim bulb tester, and I'm going to put it on massive restriction. And we should be able to get it to work. But let's have a quick look at what they offer us. Speaker is obviously on the left-hand side here. We have the volume control. Looking at the central, we've got two tone controls presets, one for music and one for speech. So music is the default. This is off, long wave, short wave, medium wave, and FM. The FM goes from 87 to 100, so we don't get the 106 yet. The long wave, medium wave is 5.9 to 15.8 megahertz, so it's not the full band, but it's pretty much. It's going to be difficult to tune shortwave, rather, talking about shortwave, because there's a lot of span to cover and there is no fine tuning. And then if you want the pickup input, you actually put these two together. There it says TA, there it says TA, so you push those two together. And AUS. Now the buttons seem to be working. I wonder if the radio is working. So let me plug it in. I don't see anything wrong with it. I'm sure we can be brave. I think I'll put the mini whip on just to improve the reception if we've got anything. Let's give it a try. Why not? Now the way we've got it, we can actually see the dim bulb tester over there. I've got the one bulb only, so there's maximum restriction. We've literally got a 40-watt bulb in series with this, which means the current limit is very small. Or rather, the current limit's very high, the maximum current is very small. So I'm gonna hit it. Let's give it a go. Let's look at the light there. It should go bright, and then if everything's good, it should go down. Yep. Yep. So this thing is no massive shorts. It's drawing 100 milliamps. And now it should go bright again as the tubes start conducting. I see the magic eye coming to life. And I hear some noise. I don't see the... Ah, ha ha! Whoa! The sound is really bad, but it could be the voltage. But let me give it one more light bulb. Okay, we've got some very heavy distortion. I think that's probably the output. Let me quickly give this medium wave a go. Connect mini whip. I don't want to play it for too long. This thing's not going beyond that point. There's something wrong with this. Long wave. Short wave. Okay, I'm putting that off. The reason I'm putting that off is this thing is getting stuck somewhere here. It's not going beyond that point, so there's something wrong mechanically inside there. Secondly, this distortion sort of sounds like leakage in the capacitors to the output stage. It could be that. Could be a lot of other stuff, but it could be that. I'm not hearing much hum, so it's probably not a filter capacitor problem. But yeah, I don't want to play it too long. If those capacitors are leaky, it could blow up my output tube or even the output transformer, and I really don't want to risk that. I'm happy with the fact that this thing is coming to life. It means that the power transformer is fine. The output transformer is giving us sound. The tube lineup is working. It's giving us something, but it's sounding bloody awful. But it's looking bloody nice. And that's half of the job. Okay, I'm going to open it up and see what we've got inside. It's looking exactly the same as some of the older sets, obviously in a more compact casing. Speaker over there looks good. That down there looks like a selenium rectifier. Power transformer. Voltage selection is done depending on which fuse you put in. That's a real cheap solution. Get this wrong and you can blow up the radio. This is 115 and 220. So what you do is if you want 220, you put the fuse across the top. If you want 115, you put it across the bottom. If you blow the fuse and you mistake it, you pump 220 into 115. Well, yeah. Okay, what else have we got? Speaker output over here. We've got a Anschluss für Monotonabnehmer. Okay, so there's the output for mono tape, I believe. Presume that's tape and or gramophone. Usually it's output and input. What else have we got? Nothing too dramatic in the tubes. EL84, EABC80, and it's not shielded. Sometimes the better ones come with shielding. EF89, that's the IF amplifier between the two IF transformers. ECH81, that's a mixer oscillator. And we've got on there the ECC85, which is the FM front end. Everything looks absolutely original and looks pretty much impeccable. I don't see any damage. I don't see paper capacitors over there, which means the inside's going to be full of them as well, which is a little bit surprising considering this is 61 to 64. They should have had something a little bit more modern by then. I know some other brands did. Telefunken, Brown. Grundig just sort of stuck to their tried and true formula and started changing the casing. Now, yeah, it looks pretty neat, but we shall see what we can make of it. There's definitely something wrong in there because the audio is terrible. So it should be at least a little bit of a challenge since cleaning isn't, and I'm not sorry about that. Yeah, pretty normal. Pretty normal. Other than the modern casing, the rest is pretty normal, including the paper caps. And it should be a bit of a challenge because there is some problem with the audio, so there's obviously capacitor problems in there. I mean, there's got to be some challenge, otherwise what the hell am I doing here? This should be fun because I love the look of this thing. I really do. I'm a sucker for looks. I love it. It's the right size. I'm hoping the sound will be good. There's an output for a 6 ohm speaker over here. So you can connect an external speaker. You can connect an external input, so you can put a CD player or whatever. I'm thinking of actually putting a Bluetooth receiver in this, because this thing is just the right size as a Bluetooth powered speaker with the tube amplifier. So yeah, okay, enough babbling. Let me take this out of the cabinet and see what it is we're facing. I think it should be pretty simple. Usually you just remove the knobs. In this case, I've got 4 screws for the front panel, which I don't think needs to come out. Or maybe it does because those won't come through. And then usually there's 4 screws on the bottom. I'll probably have to just desolder the speaker and everything should just come out. Let's try that. All right, here she is. Out of the cabinet, into the thingy, so I can flip it around. And, well, what can I say? A little bit of dirt, again, good stuff. Just having a quick look here, nothing too dramatic. I'm looking for previous, I'm looking for previous interventions, which I don't see. So it doesn't look like anybody's been in here, at least from this perspective, but I do see a little problem here. Yeah. This coil has become defrazzled. Now that must be a term. If it isn't, it should become one. It's sort of unwound. It's sort of all unwound. You know, usually these things are pretty tight on there. And I'm not sure that this thing hasn't been broken. So this is definitely something to pay attention to. I'll have to check for continuity. This is probably the long wave one. Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Actually, I can see how that happened. This thing's got these elastics around here. Got to take that very carefully or I'll break the coil. These wires are pretty sensitive. So that was there to hold this, you see, onto that stand, and it's broken. But it looks like it's sort of pushed it up, and that's definitely going to affect the alignment at least, if not the reception. But obviously I'll have to check for continuity. I think the two come to here, so anyway, that's something to look at. Otherwise on there I don't see much. Here we can see some pretty old caps, and these guys, these are the Aero, I believe. This thing it looks like it's spilling its guts on that end there. This one just looks old, and well, there's all sorts of wax, or no, it's not wax, it's probably built that way, residue that's sort of leaking down, but I think that might have been in the build. These are looking a bit rough. They almost look, I don't think they are, but they almost look like they've been rebuilt. I wonder. It almost looks as if someone's put, I'm sure that's not the case, but it almost looks like somebody's put new caps in the tube of paper that the original was in, and then filled this in with wax. That's why it's sort of not looking uniform. I wonder if these aren't new caps. The solder looks original, so I don't think so. I might be just hoping for it, but no. What I'm going to do, I don't know what the underside looks like yet, but I've seen it, but haven't looked at it closely. I'm going to take some of these out at the top and test them. Maybe even break one up, open it up and see what this is, because it looks kind of like somebody put a blob of something on here. I've got myself wondering. See if I can do something about it. Now I'll have to take it out, remove it, and do what I wanted to do here. And that is to see if that's original or whether this has been restored. And if it has been restored, if this is a restoration, if this is indeed a new cap in here, someone's done a hell of a good job. But I think they're just old. Well, we'll keep looking. And the underside looks original too. And again, these caps have got that odd filling on here. No, this is original. No, these are just a weird cap. I haven't seen caps that are actually sort of like this. It's like it's dried up. I mean, look at this one. It's almost like it's almost like it's opened up. Let's see if I can. No. I think they were just old. But you see what I mean? There's actually a separation between whatever this paste is and the paper. And that hole is sort of opened up. So, assuming this is not a recap done in an amazing way, which would have been quite cool, sort of thing I wish I could do. I mean, I can do it. I wish I had the patience to do it. And that is to, when you replace one of these caps, what some guys do is they remove this capacitor, they take the innards out, and you put that in an oven and it sort of slips out, and then you're left with a tube original, and you put a new cap in there and you fill it in with beeswax, and you basically recreate a capacitor looking identical to the original. In fact, it uses the original wrapping, and you restore it, replace it with that. And so the thing ends up looking absolutely exactly the same as the original. And that's just what I thought this might be, but no, it can't be. As I said, I'll have to just test it. So there are quite a few of these paper caps. They are sort of all over the place. There's quite a lot of them. There. Some of them underside, there. Yeah, a few electrolytics, as is to be expected. There's one, there's another. One of these will be the cathode bypass capacitor on the output power tube. The other one will be the FM discriminator cap. And the third one I'm not sure of. Maybe it's a bypass cap on the preamp tube. But when we look at the schematic, which I do have, we should get a fair idea. And then there's one of these. These are absolutely awful. It's a Wimmer cap. Now, the reason this is strange is because nowadays Wimmer has those reddish polyfilm caps, which are amongst the best that you can use, especially for guitar audio and even just normal audio. They're very, very good capacitors. They're not boutique caps, you know, they don't cost you $50 each, but they're very good quality caps. Yet, in this era, when I see these caps, I cringe. I've actually seen worm coming out of this, you know, sort of woodworm type of thing coming out of these. And some of the Philips ones use these, and I've seen holes sort of into it where the woodworm has gone in there. Really weird. This one actually looks like it's been replaced. If you look at this connection here, this bend is not natural, nor is that one there. It almost looks as if that one's been put in, but why would someone put in an old cap like that? Yeah, okay. All right, what can I see here? These resistors. The experience I've had with this type of resistor is it's either within 1% tolerance of its value, in other words, it's perfect, or they're completely out. I've had both experiences with this type of resistor. So I'll have to check those. What they've done here is actually quite clever. Because of the size constraints they basically put on these, they've got these tag strips soldered to the top of the underside of the tube socket. You know, the bottom of the tube socket in the middle, there's a metal ring which is sometimes used as a ground, sort of a local ground point. They've actually soldered these strips on, so you've got a ground at the bottom, and then you've got maybe one or two other connectors, other tags. In fact, just about all the tubes have got it. They've given themselves another tag strip, tag point. You can clearly see it here. They've got one at the bottom which is soldered to the underside of the tube. That's obviously ground, and there are things soldered to it. And then you've got an extra point over here, which has these resistors coming to it. Now, nothing too dramatic as far as the build is concerned. These, or this particular radio looks like a lot of the Grundigs I've done. The only difference is that the switching, which is usually horizontal, in this one it's sort of vertical. It's on the vertical axis of the radio. And this had to do obviously with the size constraint they had on this radio. Usually they come out here. In this case, they're built up on there. So again, a little bit tighter. There are a lot more components in what is still quite a lot of space. So it shouldn't be too difficult. Some of these capacitors are a problem to get out because they are sometimes wrapped too tightly around the solder point. So the best way to do that is to cut it there and then just sort of free the remaining piece of wire from the solder point. Otherwise you put too much strain on that. And yeah, and of course the filter caps, the filter capacitor, which is a dual cap, This one is 50 plus 50 microfarad at 350 or 385 volts DC. What I'm going to be doing here is removing it, restuffing it with new capacitors because I like the look and I think this radio deserves it. It's a lot more work than if you simply just put those two caps inside here somewhere, and I'm sure we'd find a place, leaving the can in place, but I prefer to maintain the look. I think, I mean, this is on the underside. I know that's crazy, but I still want to keep the original look. And there's quite a bit to do. So what I'm going to do is revert to my normal practice, which I've already broken the rules of. Normal practice for me is test the transformers without power. And I've got some videos in the restoration block series that I did where I show how to safely test an output transformer and safely test a power transformer before, putting any high voltages on here. I've already tested that because I did switch this on. I'm getting impatient in my old age, or getting cheeky in my overconfidence. So I know the transformers are working. So the next thing is I'm going to start at the front end, at the power supply end, check the power supply, check every point from the power supply to the power amp, then do the power amp and obviously the audio preamp, which means you can then send a signal into here, into the phono input. And that'll tell you, if you get that all done, that'll tell you that everything is fine from the audio start, the audio section onwards. And then go back to AM and FM radio, because that's basically just two sources that feed into the audio amp stage. And of course, this thing will be used as FM radio, AM radio, and also as an amplifier, because I'm thinking of putting a Bluetooth receiver on this and being able to use the pickup input, the TA, which is when you click two of those at the same time, use that to amplify and play MP3 or whatever you want to send, but send via Bluetooth to the receiver. So yeah, that's going to be fairly straightforward project, and I'm looking forward to it. The only thing here is, as I said, the space constraints, but it's not too bad. You've just got to take it one step at a time, very carefully. Check the schematics, put in a couple of caps at a time, test it again. Go it slowly so that if you do make a mistake, you don't have 10 component changes that you've made and then you don't know where the cock-up is. You can make mistakes. You can definitely make mistakes. It's very easy. And if you don't find it on time, you then have a whole lot of troubleshooting to do. Whereas if you take each component as a stage, replace this cap, test it, or replace this one and this one and test it, then if something's gone wrong, it's because of these two changes or three changes, and it's very easy to go back and check your work. So that should be, that's a rule that I follow so that I don't get myself lost with unexplained consequences to component changes. Okay, now just a word on these radios. I have actually become very accustomed to these radios. When I say these radios, I don't mean just Grundigs. I mean just most of the German radios. If you follow my channel, you've seen Grundigs, you've seen loewe-optas, Schauble-Lorenz, Telefunken, what else? Saber. And when you go look at these radios and you open them up, the innards look pretty similar. I guess it's like a doctor opening up the internals of a patient. The insides start becoming pretty recognizable. Some of them are a little bit more bloated, some of them a little bit more compact, but you've become used to it and you sort of know exactly what's going on. Now, this has not always been the case. And sometimes I make the mistake of presuming stuff. And that's a fault that I'll try to correct without boring some people. What I'm trying to say is this. A lot of what I do now, I won't say instinctively, but I do it from experience. And so sometimes I don't explain what I'm doing. Sometimes I don't go into the detail that some people would like. and I'm basically logging the work that I do on a radio, for not just for myself, but for close on 10,000 subscribers. Not that everybody watches every video, but it's a log. It's not a tutorial. And I sometimes forget that for some people, what I take for granted is still a mystery. Now, I do remember when I started looking at videos on this hobby, every stage was a learning stage for me. My background is electronic engineering, but tubes, hey, I'd never touched these things. I finished my degree in '86 in South Africa. We didn't touch tubes by then. So everything was a learning stage, and a lot of the old folks a lot of the old timers and more experienced hands who made videos when I was starting out on this hobby taught me an incredible amount of stuff. And usually the stuff that was most simplified is what taught me the most. Admittedly, most of them were not on German radios, because if you're looking for videos on tube radio restoration on YouTube and your language is English, you're going to find a lot of All-American 5s, mostly American radios, mostly a lot older than this generation. But the concepts were the same, and I learned an incredible amount from that. So if this is going to serve for anything other than a bit of an ego boost, I'd like to be able to transmit some of this information to a newer generation perhaps, or perhaps basically regurgitate what I learned on the older radios applied to the newer radios, because this is a newer radio compared to some of the ones I saw, 40s and 30s and things like that. Some of those radios are really classic. These things are fairly simple. For me, they become very, very simple. So I'd like to impart some of that knowledge. So for those who know all this stuff, that'll probably be boring, but yeah, I'll try and get a happy medium and see if we can't make this appealing to a wider range of people as well, and serve as a payback for me to give back some of the information that others gave me. Right, enough waffle. Geez, that sounds like a bloody sermon. Bloody hell, I'm getting old. So this is it. This is our radio, ready to start getting recapped and tested. I'm going to do my usual, which is I'm going to put the schematic up on Adobe Reader, the one that you can edit with. And what I do is, as I check things, I mark that off in green, and anything I replace, I mark it in red. I've actually done a video where I answer the question. A lot of people ask me, what software is that? It's nothing miraculous. It's Adobe Reader, and you can comment on it unless the file is secured, and then you got to try and find an unsecured version. So I'll actually link to that video above, and you can see for yourself how easy it is to annotate and mark off what it is that you've checked on the schematic itself. This schematic I got from nvhr.nl. Again, that's mentioned the sources of these German radio schematics. Not so much German, European. Philips are there, and Bush is there. There's a lot of radios. Even some of the American ones they've got schematics for. But I mentioned those sources in that video I've just linked on the Adobe and schematic finding. They have become invaluable for me, those sources of schematics. If you can't find them there, well, it becomes a little bit more difficult. Radio Museum is a very good source as well. So this, I've got the full schematic. I've got the instructions, the alignment instructions and everything else. It's all in German. I don't speak German, but I've become so used to reading it that I now understand most of the terms on the instructions, on the alignment instructions. So it's become quite easy. Having said all that in a rather boring, roundabout way, this is how I'll conclude this video. I'm going to do a start on that. I'll come back as soon as I've got something to report. I hope you stick around for this project. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please click like, share the video on social media, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to support the channel directly, you can do so on Patreon. Links are at the back of the video and in the description below. Thanks for watching. Bye for now, and stay safe.